Last night, former President Donald Trump made his case to voters at the Black Conservative Federation at their annual honors gala in Columbia.
But first, he spoke to our own Fox and Friends co-host, Lawrence Jones. What's up, Lawrence? Who's back with us right now?
Hey, good morning, fam. I had the opportunity to talk with 45. Talked about the latest issues facing the country, the breaking news with the courts, as well as IVF, as well as what does he think what's gonna happen in South Carolina. This is what the former president had to say. Watch. All right, Mr. President, this is the final stretch. This is the eve before the election in South Carolina. What's the final message for the people?
Whether we're going to make America great again, we have a real problem. Our country has never been this way. It's never been so dangerous or so sick. When you look at millions and millions of people pouring in through our border, coming in at levels like nobody's ever seen before, I think the real number will be 18 million people by the time this guy is finished. He's destroying our country. He's a horrible president, and we have to change on so many different levels.
Mr. President, but you got Nikki Haley. She's still in the race. When I look at the cash on hand, the RNC versus the DNC, they got a lot of money in the DNC. Why is she still in the race? And are you concerned about the cash flow?
No, well, I mean, we have a lot of cash and we're doing well and we have a much better message. She has raised some money, but it's not a lot. It's mostly from Democrats. I mean, she's getting her money from Democrats. So, and actually Biden Democrats. Now they're going to vote for him if he runs. I don't know that he's going to get to the
starting gate. You don't think he's
going
to be on the ticket?
Look, I see the way he is. I'm not sure, but I'd like to see him run. I think it would be great. I would be very happy.
Mr. President, let's talk about some of these court issues. So the judge, the breaking news is saying no delay in New York. What's that going to look like?
Well, nobody's ever heard of such a thing. He comes out with a verdict, and you're supposed to put up a bond. It takes you a period of time to get a bond. You have to go to a bonding institution. It's a sham. It's a horrible thing. We did nothing wrong. He knows we did nothing wrong. He practically said we did nothing wrong. The banks were happy. There was no victim. There was no jury. Wouldn't allow a jury. We had a clubhouse politician decide that Trump should pay $355 million on a situation where it was perfect.
Mr. President, that's not the only case, though. You got the case now here in Florida, and you're telling the judge, you say, you got to throw this out based on immunity alone.
Sure.
Where does this go?
Sure. I think the one in Florida, you're talking about the documents case.
Sir.
Well, they're not trying Joe Biden, and he had 50 years of documents, and he had classified documents all over the place, including Chinatown, including under his Corvette in a garage. I did nothing wrong, and I come under the Presidential Records Act. So we just put in, for a dismissal of that case. You know that. You probably saw that. We should be dismissed. I tell you, in the history of our country, there's never been anything like this. This is what a third world country does. It's the greatest scam in political history. It's a witch hunt. It's the greatest witch hunt, certainly, in political history.
Mr. President, you made a very strong statement about the case in Alabama and the IVF treatment. What compelled you to, it looked like it was a red line for you, and you called them miracle babies.
When this decision came down, politicians were calling me and they said, what do we do? This decision is a very rough decision. What do we do? And when I understood it, and it didn't take me too long, I'm like you, we're both fast studies, right? I said, wait a minute, these people are helping women to have beautiful babies, which is what they want. They may be unable to have them without. And I came down in favor of it, and it's been met really in a very popular way. We want to help women. We don't want to hurt women.
Lastly, Mr. President, you're here for this big event with black conservatives.
Yeah.
Everyone all across the country is talking about, you see these black residents who are typically Democrats, and they're going into the city council meetings and they're saying, how are the illegals taking over our rec centers and taking over our housing in Harlem? What's going on here? And there seems to be a surge of black support for no other Republican but Trump. And why is that? Why are you a different Republican? Why do they like you more?
And Hispanic support and Asian support. But there's a tremendous surge of black support. Look, I'm embarrassed to say Republicans would get like 4 or 5 or 6%. And I'm at 28%. And I think we're going much higher. The illegal immigrants that are coming in, and they're rough people. In many cases, they are not sending their finest for the most part. They're sending some very rough people. This is going to have a huge impact on the black community because a lot of these people are going to work for very little money and they're going to take black people's jobs. They're going to take Hispanic jobs. They're going to take the jobs of unions.
Mr. President, good luck tomorrow. We'll be watching it.
Thank you very
so
much.
sir.
Thank you very much.
I think the important thing to note as we're here in South Carolina, you look at the polls, and I always say, I only believe the polls if it's what I see in the country as well. If there's something on the ground that I see that is inconsistent with the polls, then I say maybe the polls are not wrong. What's consistent is the polls and what I see on the ground. And you don't get to tell voters no. I know that for some people, Donald Trump may not be palatable. I know that you may think he's too bombastic. But somewhere down the line, you have to listen to the voters. We don't get to tell our audience, say, hey, we cover the stories that we want to cover. We cover the stories that matter to them because that's who we serve. And I think the problem that Nikki Haley is having right now by inviting Democrats and independents into a Republican primary is they're not Republican voters, and there's not enough of them to offset the Republicans that still like Donald Trump.
You've also talked to a number of them who said, OK, I'll vote for Nikki now, but I would vote for Joe Biden later.
We saw yesterday in the diner. I've been hearing about these pollings, and there's whole sites that tell Democrats how to switch over in the primary. So I asked a young lady and young man, who are you going to vote for? They said, Nikki Haley. I go, so when you get to the general election, who are you going to vote for? And they said, Joe Biden. So, I mean, she has a real problem. This is her home state. Now, maybe it's a pride thing for me. I'm a Texas boy. I would hate to lose my state. That would be hard for me to recover from. Maybe politicians are different.
Yeah, I wonder how much money would it take for you not to be embarrassed to lose it?
Not enough.
That's what.
I don't know.
I think what's interesting is, I mean, this is a real divide in the party, and it's not like what I mean is that there are some people who are still committed to this sort of Chamber of Commerce, old way of doing things. The problems are so huge, and he's been vindicated on things like the border, even like when he said they were spying on me and that turned out to be true. He keeps getting vindicated, and people are having to kind of acknowledge that.
Well, Rachel, to your point, there is a divide, and there is a part of that Republican Party that is still there. But I give credit to the other candidates because they read the room. They may have had a different agenda, and they may have said, listen, I want to present my ideas. You even had Tim Scott that said, nice guy. And he said, look, I hear the people saying, he had a lot of money, more money than Nikki Haley. He said, listen, they're not saying that they don't like me. He said, not now, Tim, not now. And you got to listen to the voters. You don't get to dictate, the process.
Yeah.
This is not a coronation when you got 90% of the Republican base saying this is what they want.
But the donor class has always felt that they had a bigger say. And we'll see. It sounds like people are speaking.
Nice job.
Thanks, bro.
Yep, as always.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.